crazy. I thought I was gonna die. A normal boy that grew up in a normal town, but the environment was the way it was. And then the blue rag eventually went to becoming a Crip, like later on. So gangs, drugs, music, stuff like that. But it started about fifth grade. The school I was going to was Linmore. It was in Columbus, Ohio. It was right across the street from like a real big hood. In this hood, you really couldn't walk down the streets if you wasn't from it. You had to, if we did have, had to walk, we had to kind of walk all the way to the, all the way out our way. Because if we didn't, we'll, get jumped for no reason. And instantly, as soon as I get in jail, I begin to read the Bible. Because, you go to jail, you don't know how this stuff going. You don't know who in there, so you sticking to yourself. So I would read, from Genesis to the end. I read hours a day. I was just reading. Really didn't know how to pray. Didn't really even know how to study the Bible. I was just reading. I just began to see God move while I was in jail. Different things, different people.
So you grew up in Fremont, Ohio, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. From your perspective, what was it like growing up in Fremont?
It was a small town, but it was like family. Everybody, that we knew was considered family or a part of the family. It was it was just fun, It was fun. Everything was close. We wasn't really worried about too much crime or nothing like that. Fremont was a small town, kind of similar to I would say like Pascagoula, maybe a little bit smaller than Pascagoula, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's from my understanding, you got a large family that you grew up with.
Yeah.
Are you the youngest or the oldest of your siblings?
Within my mom's, like from mom and dad, yeah, I'm the youngest. Yep. On my dad's side, I'm the second youngest.
Okay. How many siblings?
On my mom's side, it was 5 of us all together. With my dad, I believe it's 13.
13?
Yeah.
Man. So how was it like growing up in Fremont, Ohio with such a big family?
Really, man, it really was, it was a good time, but you really couldn't do nothing. If you did something, you had to be like ducked off somewhere, nobody seen you. When I grew up, it was a time where, we did a lot of bike riding, we did a lot of jumping in the forest and, doing crazy stuff. So, I mean, for the most part, that's what we were doing besides sports and stuff like that. I always had my cousins. We always played. The family's big on football.
Okay.
Really big on football. I have a famous family member that my grandfather taught how to play football. So, football was one of the sports I learned first because it was such a demand on the family. And then, just from that sport, from football to basketball as a kid.
Okay.
Yeah, we always went to church. My grandmother was the one, she kind of did her best to keep us in church. My mom and my stepdad at the time, I think they got married when I was, how old was I? I had to be like at least 6. I think I was 6. They got married, had a big wedding. My childhood was like, on one side, getting raised by my mom, it's partying and it's, we witnessed parties in our house at night, you know what I'm saying? Stuff like that. It was a lot of street activity. It was a lot of, like a younger crowd, you know what I'm saying? Like we was getting raised by kids in a sense. So it was a lot of that. But then on my grandmother's side, when she would help my mom, we'd live with her. So that's when we would always be in church. You know what I'm saying? So when we lived with her, it was different. Like I said, we did have to go to church. I got baptized when I was 7 in my grandmother's church. I believe we all was in the church. My grandfather, he's a deacon in the church, and my grandmother, she was like a pastor's aide. So she kind of always kept her breath mint, stuff like that. She just she was just kind of like, how we see in our church the setup. She was
Right.
always there wearing white. But other than that, man, I had a real like I said, always around family. So it was like I didn't really need friends. You didn't. It's just family. When we went to school, same thing. I probably had 16 cousins at the school.
Man.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like we getting in fights, we doing stuff, and it's always like family is surrounding you. I believe I was not this around that time in my life, but I mean, we enjoyed church. I mean, as a kid, had to do the Easter speeches, had to do the lock-ins and Halloween stuff. We were there as long as we was with my grandmother. But it's like when we left, it turned into whatever. You know what I'm saying? My
Yeah.
mom, she did what she could. But they were affiliated with the streets. Drugs was involved, stuff like that. So just trying to make sure, you got a woman that's raising 5 kids. She in her mind thinking like, I got to do what I got to do, make sure these kids fed, stuff like that. So I believe my mom did go to jail, but I was around like 6 or something. So it was like a point where I remember her going, but I don't remember how long she was gone. It was like kind of quick. She was back. So I think at that point, that's when I first got like traumatized because we was in a house. My uncle sold drugs and stuff. And when I mean like drugs, like I asked my mom years ago, I said, how much, drugs was y'all selling? My mom said her alone, she said a key a week. So I believe my uncle, and I'm just hearing this from the reunion we just had. My uncle told on everybody or something like that, and got maybe 4 of my uncles put in jail for about 15 years. Like it just destroyed the whole lifestyle we had in Fremont. It kind of, we got robbed twice. I was a kid. I think I had to be at least, like I said, from 3 to 6. I remember being in my under the bed, like a baby bed, bassinet, and I remember seeing people like climb, over the, what I'm saying, trying to break in. And I remember my mom answered the door. The guy was like, give me all your, like a robbery, but he didn't force his way in. He knew about the money, but he didn't come all the way in the house. My uncles was there. I remember seeing, how like my barbershop is with that curtain in the back. Like we had that in our kitchen, and I was, looking up under it, and I remember just seeing like cases of bullets, like bullets. I'm talking about like, in a case, in a little black case that you take out of. And I think around that time I experienced that trauma because I can't, I can't like I can't stop thinking about it. You know what I'm saying? It's times it'd come up, you know what I mean? Throughout all my life. So I feel like that was one of the first moments I was like, just went through something that was crazy. I thought I was gonna die, as a kid. I probably was like, cause I'm the youngest of 5. So about, yeah, I probably had to be from, it had to be from 4 to about 6, no older than 6. My grandmother and grandfather had 9 kids. 2 girls, 7 boys. So all their boys was really in the streets. You know what I'm saying? I think the only person that didn't end up in the streets was my aunt, the youngest. But everybody else was like affiliated from in the streets. So it's like really grandmother, just holding up, just making sure keep the door open. If anybody needed, come here. Um, she couldn't do really too much, you know what I mean? Other than whenever my mom got kicked out or lost her place, she'll let us come live. We lived with my grandmother like I think about 3 times, 3 different times.
At what age do you really get involved as far as the street life?
Like myself, like putting myself in the streets.
Right.
Um, I would say, I was like in the 5th grade, 6th grade. That's when because I've been seeing this all my life, been hearing the lingo, been hearing them talk about being a GD, a gangster, a Crip, blood type stuff. I've been hearing it. It's been in my life at at the point of fifth grade to where I began to wear like a rag. Like I kind of put myself in it, even though my family was in it. I didn't go to my family and be like, you know what I'm saying, put me in it. I just was like, hey, it's in my family, it's me, it's a part of me, it's a part of my culture. So I started with the blue rag, and then the blue rag eventually went to like becoming a Crip like later on. So, but it started about fifth grade.
Was there like an aspiration to kind of
Yeah, that always was the ultimate goal. Even though gangs was affiliated in our family, it was like still basketball, football was the goal. Like, you know what I'm saying? Stay out the streets, don't follow your cousins, focus on sports. So, and that's what we did, played basketball, heavily, football heavily.
mhm,
Um, but other than that, man, it like I said, just having my cousin Charles Woodson, just having him um being who he was, it just kind of brought a lot of those guys that were selling drugs, over to the sports. I got a lot of younger cousins that could have made it that didn't, because of drugs, stuff like that, because of the streets, going in jail, stuff like that, just losing your goal, losing that fire for it. So
where is your father at while all this is going on?
I believe I believe he was down here. He was in Mississippi. Yeah, he was in Gulfport. So I believe he did come. Like when I asked my mother, I believe they were trying to make it work in Ohio, but it was just so strange, I guess, culture shock for my father to be, in Ohio with no family, trying to create a family, you know. But it wasn't. I don't remember him being in Ohio. I don't. I remember him coming up there one time when I was a kid, and I think it was around the time I was. This was like the sixth grade. That was like the first time I remember seeing my dad in that moment. It was like sixth grade,
Mhm.
like seeing like really like first time meeting and understanding something about my dad. You know what I'm saying? At that age. So it wasn't nothing before that. It was times we probably shared moments, but not to where I could really remember my dad was right here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
As being young, pretty much what I would do is I would take this rag and I would put it. I had to go to school, and so I think it was like what, the 90s, 2000, close to the 2000. We used to wear the rag, or we used to cuff our pants. It's one of the two. So I used to have the rag up here during school, so I wouldn't get in trouble. And then after school, I would bring it down, raise my pant leg up, or if I had shorts on, you would see it. But what I would do is, when I first started, man, we would just, my cousin, my best friend, he wasn't really into it like I was. But I had cousins, I had friends that was all into it. And then I wasn't in Fremont at this time. I was in Sandusky. We left Fremont after my uncle, after all that stuff. Everybody went to jail. People got shot. My mom moved to Sandusky, and it's about 30 minutes away. It's like from here to Poplarville, something like that. And so when we moved, we get to Sandusky. So my brother's there. I think my sister stayed with my grandmother, and then my brother moved back with my grandmother after a couple months. He didn't like it, so I'm by myself. Like it's my mom had two boys and three girls, so I'm getting raised pretty much by my mom at the time. She's not married. So it's really just me trying to figure this out. You know what I'm saying? So I didn't have my brother there to be like, brother, don't do that, or whatever. So I'm just doing what I see on TV, doing what I hear through the, Jay-Z was one of the big rappers I was listening to as a kid. He influenced me a lot. And I really did what I seen the culture doing. I mimicked what I seen and what I heard and what I knew, daily. Just presented myself as a Crip, just, was afraid to, mama didn't know. Mama didn't know I was a Crip till, we moved to Columbus. But she knew all that stuff was going to come. And I asked her, I said, Mom, you know, um, I said, did you ever think I'd sell drugs? You know what I'm saying? Like, did you ever think I'd be in that lifestyle? And she tells me, no, because I took you away from it, at the right time. You know what I'm saying? So, but around that time, bro, I just really followed the trend, really, bro. Just
Mm.
trying to be down and be a part of this because didn't seem to be you know what I'm saying? You could have a big family, but still not feel or necessarily like find your identity within your family. I just thought
And
that
then,
was a way of life.
okay.
It was like, okay, you're getting older, it's time to fit in. Where you fit in at. You love sports, okay. See, because that's one dynamic that's in the black culture. It is gangs, and that's something that we have to choose. Just like a career, you choose. Hey, I want to be a doctor, but being in a predominantly black neighborhood or a school, you have to choose. You have to choose, because if you don't, it's gonna be like you chose, but now both gangs, all gangs, is aimed at you. So you got to make a decision. I don't think I knew anybody in Sandusky at all. So coming there, it was like I didn't have my cousin to say, "Hey, this is what we do. Learn these licks, learn this knowledge as a Crip or whatever." Didn't have that, so it was like really I already kind of seen it happen, so I had to live it without no guidance. So yeah, part of me was like, "Let me do this because this is what I see in the culture," and then a part of me was like, "This is my life." You know what I'm saying? Like I done seen family members grow up in this and live it. You know what I'm saying? And still living it. At that time, my uncles probably was my age or a little bit younger. And they still was cripping. You know, they still was affiliated with the gangs and stuff like that. But
So with people, everybody that's watching that would see this interview, take us kind of deeper as far as, whatever you're comfortable with, like things that you were involved in to kind of show people who
um,
you were.
I would say when you looking at a normal boy that grew up in a normal town, but the environment was the way it was. It was, gangs, drugs, music, stuff like that. So when I moved to Columbus, I mean, Sandusky, I got a little bit worse, you know what I'm saying? Because I already grew up not having, you know what I'm saying? So we was already stealing and, getting accustomed to taking bikes, stuff like that. So as I grew up older, it was more like my position was in the gangs, but it was more like, hey, now you have to figure out who you are as a street guy. Like we know you cripping, we know you a black dude, we know you in the hood. Okay, but who are you? Are you the type of person that's gonna be selling dope on a corner? Are you the type that's gonna be buying the dope? You know what I'm saying? Like, are you gonna be that type of person that's gonna be just getting into all type of stuff, or you gonna become a jack boy stealing? That's something that I guess my older cousin was doing, and me and my younger cousin, his brother, kind of just fell off into. And we wanted money, we wanted it quick, we wanted to have, the nice things. So we would set up stuff. We would try to rob people. You know, we would try to sell dope. Smoke if we could. I didn't smoke weed until I was 18, um, and that's kind of weird because I grew up around all that stuff, but I didn't do it until I was 18. But I think by the time I left, when I was in Sandusky, I did the average stuff a kid would do, you know, try to steal, whatever, get away with it. But when I moved to Columbus, and this was seventh grade, this was beginning of seventh grade, and then that's when I started getting into more like the real stuff. Like Columbus was is like more like a bigger city, more people, it's faster. It's like you if you don't know what you doing in this city, you get turned upside down. So when I moved to Columbus, immediately, I mean the first day of school, I found out like all that stuff you was doing there back then, it was okay. But you here, this a whole different arena. You know, you got kids in the seventh grade smoking, drinking, cripping, shooting, got a gun on them in school. So you looking at, I went from like 0 to 100. You know what I'm saying? Transferring from schools, and when I get there, so now you know who you were had to come out a little bit more. You know, you had to really prove you was a Crip. I had to carry a gun to school.
What
Was
grade?
was in the seventh grade. It's in the seventh grade. The school I was going to was Linmore. Is in Columbus, Ohio. It was right across the street from like a real big hood. Um, in this hood, you really couldn't walk down the streets if you wasn't from it. You had to, if we did have, you know, had to walk, we had to kind of walk all the way to the, you know, all the way out our way, because if we didn't, we'll, you know, get jumped for no reason, or you know, shoes get taken and stuff like that. There was a time that we did, I think, and this is kind of down the line of the story of my testimony, but like just getting active with robbing people, and not like innocent people, regular people. You know what I'm saying? Robbing guys that's actually, you know, doing what we doing. You know what I'm saying? We made that pact, and I did too within myself. Like, I'm not gonna rob a person that's working at Walmart. You know what I'm saying? Like saving up. Like I'm gonna rob the guy out here that got trying to sell weed or trying to sell cocaine or trying to sell crack. Like those were the guys we were aiming at, and I did my first what we would call a kick door. So we kicked the door in. Well, we pull up. We in a small little car. I think it was like four of us, and my cousin. We get to the door. I had a nine. My other cousin had like a AK or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And this is how crazy we were. This is how like so gone, and like within the music and everything else. Um, I put the guns away and like let them hold it, and I'm kicking the door in. And mind you, I don't know. I know what's in the house because somebody told us. So I don't know what's in the house. Pretty much, I don't know who in the house. I don't know how many people. We didn't knock on the door. We just went to it, stood in front, and kicked the door in. So at that time, I was like sold out. Like it didn't matter if I was gonna die behind it. It didn't matter. I recall like listening to Lil Wayne, because at that time, even doing these little robberies or just trying to figure out a way to get money, we didn't smoke weed. Maybe my older cousin did. So I wasn't influenced by no drugs to get in the mindset. You know, it was really just the music. We could sit there and listen to Lil Wayne for a couple minutes and be ready to do whatever we had to do.
So you saying the music that you guys listened to gave you like extra motivation?
Yeah, just because the music was telling us to do what we were about to do. You know what I'm saying? In another word, telling us to, rob, steal, do whatever we got to do for ourselves. I think that happened after I came back from down here after Katrina. I went back home, and then that's when that happened. Stuff, got really into, robbing and just trying to, and just scheming, man, and just trying to sell weed and sell drugs and be a dope boy, be like these people that we see, you know what I'm saying, having that. Like when I was growing up, I wanted to be a basketball player, excuse me, but I wanted to be like Tony Montana. We wanted to be like these guys in the streets. We wasn't trying to, we was balling, we was hooping, But we wanted to be like these guys with money, power, drugs, guns, women. Like that's what we wanted. Like we wanted that life for sure.
At any point, at some point, like, did you think, like, man, it's kind of like a little too much I'm doing. I really need to, get myself together.
Yeah, but it didn't not like I think maybe after all that, maybe after I think I came back here or while I was trying to get back, we was about to do this robbery and the guy had some he had some dope, he had some money and we were about to do it and here I come. In a sense, I'm green to everybody else because I'm moving into this city and I'm trying to get on their speed, how they do stuff. So I'm green in a sense, but I got my heart, I got my loyalty. So I'm like pledging to whatever we trying to do. And my cousin was saying about this guy, he knew this guy, blah, 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 had this, had that at the house. And we trying to scheme, we plotting. Like we trying to figure out what would be the easiest way for us to get in here and get out. You know what I'm saying? Get the money and get out without nobody getting hurt or whatever. And we talking about the details of the, who live in the house and stuff, what we got to do when we get in there. And then his baby mom got brought up. Baby mama just had a baby. I'm trying to get in and, I said, man, hey, why don't we just get the baby? If we can find a way to get the baby, we got the money. And I said, if we get to that child, I could just use the gun, act like I'm going to shoot the child, and that's going to break the woman. You know what I'm saying? She going to tell us where the money is, and, we going to go ahead and do it. After all that happened, I'm sitting back thinking like, bro, what kind of person are you to think something like that? Still being like in this thuggish mentality because if a thug can't think something like that and still be who he is, he's not in the streets. You just ain't got it. Like you want to be a thug, but you just ain't got it. So I had to think a certain way. What I thought about killing a baby or just making it look like, I don't know, man. It just felt like it was like a conviction. And at that time, I wasn't in church at all, like not even close. Wasn't even thinking about God. And I was just like, my grandmother didn't raise me like that. You know what I'm saying? Like all this stuff come. And that's what I guess that's when God really start, like my life just just start going in just different places. You know what I'm saying? I feel like that's the moment where God really began to work on my soul. I feel like that. Because I mean, how can I just think of that when I'm in a mode? Nobody else said it. I'm talking to other gangsters, they ain't got no problem with it. They agreed, you know what I'm saying? So
What point does it get to where it really sends you off to prison?
when I got locked up, it was kind of for the same. I got locked up twice in juvenile. I think I was 17, 18. I believe this was after that. But we were in Cleveland, Ohio. And this is how stupid I was. Like we were coming after Katrina, so we had an apartment paid. The apartment was paid for 18 months. Didn't have to pay no rent, and didn't have to do nothing because we were considered refugees from Mississippi. So when we up there, my baby mom, she was getting ready to have my our first child, which was a boy, and she ended up leaving. She didn't like the cold, so she left. I'm up there in Ohio by myself. I'm going to school. Was in the 10th grade, I believe. Yeah, about 10th grade. And we were trying to figure out how we was gonna get some money because my girl left. We were young in school. I had a little bit of bread because we did this robbery with this guy, and it scared me. This was the first time it was the guy's cousins. Guy's cousin set up his cousin for 100 grams of coke. Like this was my first time seeing that much. Like, you know what I'm saying? In my as I was that old, and we were in the car, and I sat in the back. He sat in the front, and they talking or whatever. Then it switched. Dude was like, give me the money, give me the coke. Dude ain't want to do it. He shot at the floor, kind of like startled me a little bit. He tells me to get out the car, run around on the side. You know what I'm saying? And get engaged in this robbery too. I didn't have no mask on. He didn't have one on. You know what I'm saying? I ended up taking something off the dude person. And when I went back to school, they were like, hey man, oh dude looking for that. You better get rid of that. They were just saying like Cleveland only got really two sides, the west and the east. And the guy was from the east side, which is considered like the worst side in Cleveland. So they was like, man, he got family that go to the school, and they was like, he gonna chop your hand off, all this stuff. So I had to sell what I took from him, and when I sold it, the guy gave me the money back in counterfeit. So I had all the money I had from this, what I sold from the guy. I had nothing but counterfeit. And this is just how it worked. When we do evil stuff, evil returns. Like the man sold all that coke and he got nothing but counterfeit. Like I don't know like how he did it, the guy we robbed, you know what I'm saying? The coke or whatever, it exchange, it was all counterfeit. So 100 grams, that man got nothing but counterfeit. Gave it to me. I wouldn't try to spend it. The people called the police on me. I didn't know it was fake. Had to figure out how to get rid of the money. Had to find like a little booster that sold clothes. Had to, get rid of all the money. And so me and my friends, we were plotting. Some of us was in school together in Cleveland, and we was just trying to figure out how to make some money, how to get some money, and get my one friend home. And I think I was trying to come down here to check on my baby mom. So we was trying to figure out who we was gonna rob. We were going to do a taxi guy, but the dude get out the car. He swole Jamaican dude. So we was like, nah, we don't want to do that because he might has, you know what I'm saying? He might have something on him. So
So he's a big dude.
we do the pizza. We call the pizza man stupid, the dumbest idea in the world, thinking he gonna have money. So we tell him, hey, we want 5 largest, we want 50 wings, we want all this stuff so you could bring change because we gonna spend a lot of money. Dude probably had $28 on him.
Man.
I set up the robbery. I planned it out with the guys, and we ended up getting caught. And my older sister D, she was like, "Just turn yourself in, just turn yourself in." And I was like, "Nah," trying to still get away with what I was doing. And at that moment, I was like, you know what, and I was really needing a change in my life. You know what I'm saying? And you don't have to. People be thinking sometimes you gotta go through all this stuff so bad to want to change. Like I just seen from that moment of wanting to put a gun to a baby head, all that stuff was still in me, like wanting to change. So we do this robbery, set it up. I turn myself in. Me and my friend. I did a year in juvie, and then I get out. I come back to Mississippi. I think I was here maybe a year and got in trouble again. So around 2008, we was selling some pills. I got back into the game, but see down here is different. It's really not. It's a presence of gang, but it's more like it's way lower. Like you won't even notice it. I was down here, getting ready to get locked up, selling some pills. Sold over 100 pills to undercover. They set us up. It was a like long story. The guy that set us up got caught because he was like a type of guy. He'll sell like high grade weed, like perp, like stuff like that. Kush, and he got caught. So he had to snitch on somebody else so he could get less time. So here I come, and all this was to bring me out. You know what I'm saying? Out of this lifestyle. It was an undercover cop. They wanted to give me, really 30 years. They were saying 30 years. At that moment, my daughter, my second oldest, I just witnessed her coming. She just came to this world, and then the very next day, I was in jail, looking at 30 years. And I got real suicidal when I was in a cell. I was bamming on the wall, And the lady came. It was like, the guard. She came to my cell, and she was just like, what's wrong? What's wrong with you? And then I was like, I told her the story, like, hey, my daughter was just born. They said I'm be going to jail for 30 years. I don't know what to do. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to have to wait 30 years to see my daughter again. Like, I'm just going through. I don't know what she said, but she said something to me. And when she left, I just felt peace. Like all the feelings was going away. I ended up still doing my time for that. Didn't do too long for it. Prisons was overcrowded during that time. Ended up getting out, and then getting saved, stuff like that.
Well, how did it go from being 30 years?
To down to what I did because God, man, the pills was fake. The pills ended up being fake. And what was crazy, the night before we did the sale, we were popping the pills. It was the X pill. We tried to, take it, and it didn't work. We took about two or three. We were like, man, I don't know what's going on with these pills. So we just ended up smoking. But the pills were fake, and I was really just driving. I made it. I did my job to just sit in the car. Like I didn't get out when he did the sale. I just drove, but he did have me on record and stuff like that. So I guess with it being fake, um, and it being our first time, stuff like that, they reduced it, and I had to get I had a lawyer, stuff like that. I had to pay for a lawyer,
Hmm.
um, but I only end up doing it was 30. Then they dropped it down to 10, suspended the 10, and gave me this program, and I had to do 3 years on papers probation.
Wow. Walk us through understanding leading up to this. Walk us through how you found Jesus in prison.
I found Jesus in prison when I believe when I first got locked up. When I first I remember when I was in that cell, because they had an indictment, a warrant out for my arrest. So I didn't know. Like I was unaware. My daughter was born on Keesler Air Force Base. So I'm sitting outside the base in cuffs for about 30 minutes till the sheriff gets there. I'm going through all this stuff, thinking like I'm never gonna see my daughter again. So I get to the jail, talk to the DA. He tell me 30. We got you on here, we got you here. So like I said, I was feeling all these suicidal feelings. When the lady left, I remember my grandmother, like just the thought of her serving. You know what I'm saying? Like in church, my grandfather, and I'm like, man, they're old doing this. You know what I'm saying? They're not young people. They're old. I said, God, I said, if you could do that for my grandmother, my grandfather, I said, you could do it for me. And that's when I called out and I said, I need help. You see what I'm saying? Because I couldn't really say, help me because I need help. It's just help me because I seen you help somebody. You know what I'm saying? I seen you not only help my grandparents, but for some reason they keep in this lifestyle. You know what I'm saying? They keep in this lifestyle that my mom tried to live. She couldn't live it all the way. I think my mom was saved super tough for about, I say about 4 or 5 years. She was doing her own thing, going to church every day, stuff like that. But so I go to jail with this thought that my grandmother was living for God, and my grandmother passed. I believe at this point, she probably was dead a couple years at this point. She died when I was in Cleveland, and so I was trying to just get to the point my grandma was at in my relationship with God. So I go to jail, and instantly, soon as I get in jail, I begin to read the Bible because you go to jail, you don't know how this stuff going, you don't know who in there, so you sticking to yourself. So I would read, from Genesis to the end. I read hours a day. I was just reading. Really didn't know how to pray, stuff like that. Didn't really even know how to study the Bible. I was just reading. I was just reading the Bible, and man, and I just began to see God move while I was in jail. Different things, different people. Um, meeting preachers in jail, like meeting pastors in jail, stuff like that. But I began to minister in jail after a while. I think I started out really good my first time when I was doing time with God, and then I kind of fell back. Once I got to the place I was going to do my rest of my time, I started like smoking, back smoking cigarettes and stuff like that. Whatever they had, I got back into this groove, and then something happened, and then I got released. So, but man, in jail it was different, bro. It was like how we have to live a certain way. Like you have to even live that even more in jail because people like, oh, you just using that because you in here and you scared. So I had to really be committed to God, in front of all these hard men and criminals and all this stuff. I had this experience. I think me and my wife when I was in jail. I think we were split up, but God was just giving me dreams of us coming back together the whole time. You know what I'm saying? When I was locked up for that first time, it was a time where I was with this preacher in jail. He was a guy wanted to get out the gangs. He wanted to get out, a gangster. And this guy was wearing diamonds, glasses in jail, so he had a high rank. So he ended up wanting to get out, and the only way he could get out is get blood in, blood out. So he's getting jumped. We could hear it all night long, getting beat up. Next morning comes, he wants us to pray for him, for his recovery, and he's leaving the gang life. So we have to go in a similar room, and it's like all gangsters in there, and we're not supposed to be in there. But the pastor wanted to pray for the guy. So we all come, it was like 14 of us. And once we walk into the room and the other guys seen where we were, they turned around and left. So it was just me and this preacher. And we seen the guy, his face is swollen. He couldn't even open his eyes. He was like, just pray for me, I believe God is real. I was in this real bad accident. He's giving us his whole testimony. And we down here praying for this guy. When we were praying for him, like out of the corner of my eye, I seen the guy that was over all the gangsters come in the room. And he walked straight to us, but it's like he ran into this force field he couldn't get past. And it was God. God stopped this man from interrupting what he was doing. In those moments, just being saved and just like living with these men, like I just knew God was real, and I seen that in jail. You know what I'm saying? I didn't see like somebody, getting healed. Like that wasn't my way. My way was just being in a confined place around animals and killers. Like, and God was still there, still being God, you know. But other than that, man, it was different, man. And that was like me being a first time Christian in jail.
What was your the encounter that changed everything?
I had a couple of them, and it wasn't in the beginning
Mm-hmm.
necessarily. I had a couple of them, like the time when I was locked up. The guy was trying to come in, seeing God move then, and just like favor he had on me when I was in jail. Certain things, would happen to me, and it wouldn't happen to nobody else. Like when I first got to the place I was going to do my time at, everybody had to walk like 15 miles a day and pick up trash. And when I get there, all of a sudden they ain't got room. So I had to go to this place to where it was, I mean, no supervision, nobody around us, no cops, no guns. And I count that as a blessing. But when I knew God was with me, and for sure, and like I knew I was saved, it was a time like just my whole period of being in jail, just like being in fights, um, not feeling that old self no more. Like I was in a fight with this guy. I was working, and he kind of got behind me and started punching me, and I didn't even realize I was in a fight. And then when I look back at it, I feel like it was God because I didn't feel none of his punches.
Mm.
And I turned around and I'm like, man, I'm in a fight. So I'm fighting this guy, and I hear God say stop, and I stopped. I wasn't angry. I wasn't uncontrollable. It was like the old Shump is gone. Like, and it showed I'm in a physical fight, and I love God. You know what I'm saying? I ain't trying to hurt nobody, but and I told the security guard. I said I didn't want to get shot. You know, but really I heard a voice that made me come up off of him
Mm.
because I was hurting. You know what I'm saying? It was like more like I went from a defense fight to where I would try to hurt him. And I feel like that's when the Holy Spirit spoke and said, get off of him, stop, because you're not the same no more.
When did you when did you give your life to Christ? Like,
Like
you
publicly, like for
like
the open,
what was that moment like that you really gave your life to Christ and like really renounced
the
Crip
world.
and renounced the gangs
I
and
was in jail. I was in jail.
explain that moment.
Um, well, I was in what they call in jail security, to where if you're affiliated with the gang, you have to eat with them because they don't know what's gonna happen in the child hall. You know what I'm saying? So they want all gangsters sitting next to each other, all vice lords, so nothing don't happen. So I had to denounce that. I had to become a peon. I had to another thing. It was another guy who was older. It was about two Crips on his own, and I had to denounce me being a Crip. Like I had to like, hey, this is no longer a part of my life. It wasn't no like blood in, blood out moment for me. I didn't have to get beat up because I wasn't. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm saved, my life different. I don't have to pay that debt. You know what I'm saying? To get out this gang. That stuff over with. Um, put my flag down in jail and really just start um, just living right, man. And I feel like people, they don't count that time, that relationship you develop in jail. They don't count it. But that's hard. That's harder than being in a world where you can go to church when you want to.
Yeah.
And I started ministering in jail before I even ever knew what a preacher was, like knowing, what I mean by that, like knowing all the details about ministering. And I remember like every day I used to walk around the cell, call, church call, getting the guys up, praying with them, and just teaching them the word. And when I really, really knew I was changed, like grown men, 50, 60 years old, would come up to me and like, hey, brother, I really appreciate, what God is doing in your life. Like that was different for me. You know what I'm saying? Like I didn't know how to be a preacher or how to preach a word. Like I was just really reading my Bible, and I did have Apostle McCoy, like as like he was my pastor, but I wasn't involved in church like that at that point. Like I really wasn't. I don't even think I was going to church on Wednesdays. That was just something I didn't do. Like
Yeah.
Wednesdays was my workout days. Like you know what
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying. Like so, I really wasn't even like super dedicated. You know.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of stuff. You know what I'm saying. But I had to put it down when I was
So pretty
locked up.
much, through all the stuff that you've been through your life, you get to a point to where you say, "Hey, enough is enough," and I want to denounce this. I want to leave the world,
Right.
and I really want to give my life to Christ. And it really just speaks volume. The Bible says how God said, "I declare the end from the beginning."
Uh,
In the beginning, we see you, in church. Your grandmother have you and your siblings involved in church. You're growing
mhm.
up with a religious foundation.
Right. Right.
And so throughout that time, even though you're going through your journey in the streets, it kind of detoured a little bit. There was still some kind of, seed of God in you
Right.
from
Yeah.
those early years that kind of gave you a
Hmm.
consciousness, because a lot of people when they're in situations like that, they don't make the right choice. They don't
Yeah.
make the right, turn,
Right. Right.
for the better. people can still see this and know that, hey, if God did it for Shumphert, God can do it for my son. If a single mother is watching this, if
Right.
somebody a young man is trapped in the streets and don't know how to make it out, all it takes is when you really make it up in your mind to say, hey, I really want something better for my life,
Right.
and just to see you, to see how you come through all those nuances and how you just really say, hey, enough is enough. I really got to make a change in my life, and for God to meet you in those predicaments and have really transformed your life from all that, it really speaks volumes. So I enjoyed you, man, and
Yes, sir.
I really appreciate you coming in and showing us your journey to Jesus, and I wish you nothing but success.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Until next time. Peace.
All right.